The brand new planet-shaking power of Boruto could actually have Uzumaki origins, and the more we dive into this iceberg, the more sense it makes. Months prior to Two Blue Vortex, we saw the release of the Minato one-shot, which extended some of the Uzumaki lore for us, alongside unveiling a new backstory of Minato and Kushina, plus the creation story behind the rasengan. But the point to be noted is the recurring concept of spirals and vortex that we got to see a lot in this one-shot manga. It didn't seem like a big deal until the title of Boruto's time skip itself turned out to be Two Blue Vortex. And till this date, we are still unaware about the second Blue Vortex. It could be someone from the Uzumaki family like Naoto, Himawari, Kawaki, or maybe the infamous entity Shibai or Suzuki. Well, that's a topic for another video. Right now, let's focus on this whirlpooling concept that the Minato manga had left for us. It's definitely teasing something big for Boruto's story, and the puzzle pieces had started coming together after he unveiled his brand new technique, the Uzuhiko. This ability lets the user absorb the planet's kinetic energy and other centrifugal forces to create a massive swirling energy ball, which is arguably the strongest rasengan ever. Think of the Uzuhiko as the final installment in the evolved rasengan family, with Rasen Shuriken being the first and Momoshiki's Rasendan coming at number 2. Now this is where things get interesting. The Uzuhiko appears to be a spiraling energy which surrounds the user when he is charging for a strike. The Uzumaki symbol also seems to be rotating in a similar manner, which is pretty obvious cause both of them have been derived from the concept of a vortex. But what if there is more to this analogy that we as the readers are missing out? The return of the Uzumaki lore in the same one shot, which established a foundation for the manga's sequel, doesn't seem like a coincidence to me. This is why I believe the Uzuhiko could actually be an Uzumaki power, and the hints to back this possibility make a lot of sense. So make sure you use that swirl on your fingers to tap on that subscribe button, cause I'm about to change your entire perspective on this mysterious ability. Almost a year ago, when Boruto first showed us the absolute cinema by activating the Uzuhiko against code, a lot of theories started emerging regarding the origins of this never before seen variant of the Rasengan. Some favorite theories of mine that I think could have been the coolest things to ever exist include Boruto reaching the moon to learn this ability from Toneri or Suzuki. The logic behind this theory had something to do with how this power works. It first absorbs the centrifugal energy that the planet creates while rotating and then transfers it all to a Rasengan. So what would be the best place to study the rotation of a planet? Well, it's obviously the closest celestial body, which in this case was the moon. And since Toneri, the well-wisher of Boruto who's already trapped here, according to the anime's narrative of the story, it somehow made sense for Boruto to travel to the moon for acquiring such techniques. But unfortunately, as interesting as this theory may sound, it never actually happened. However, we were given a subtle explanation of how Boruto obtained this power in chapter 13, even though it wasn't something ridiculous or off the charts like Uzuhiko being an ability of Shibai, which is also a good theory considering the similarities of this panel where both of these characters can be seen summoning whirlwinds. But anyway, it was revealed that Kashin Koji has tapped into a power known as prescience, which allows him to see multiple possible futures. And fortunately, there was one such future where Boruto had obtained the power of Uzuhiko. So Kashin Koji simply sneaked into that timeline just to teach this broken power to the present Boruto. But the thing that could turn out to be the biggest setup here is the concrete existence of a future Boruto who learned everything by himself. And looking at how this counterpart of the prodigy must have never met Koji, we can assume his life to be a lot worse than the present Boruto. I have already made 2 dedicated videos on this future Trunks type of twist, so go check them out after this one if you haven't already. But the thing that we are gonna discuss today is also as interesting as those theories. The Uzumaki origins of the Uzuhiko ability, the next big plot twist in Two Blue Vortex. In chapter 12 of the manga, we saw how Boruto absolutely destroyed Hidari with this power. The reason this ability is too broken is due to the liberty that it gives to the user by enabling him to absorb as much rotational energy as possible. Since the planet will never stop spinning, we can charge up this ability for unlimited amounts of time, meaning that the Uzuhiko is the pinnacle of the Rasengan technique. The transition from the Minato one-shot to Two Blue Vortex shows us the birth and peak of a power which has come really handy to a generation of heroes. Taking a dive into the real-life interpretation of Uzuhiko, we find ourselves to the Japanese deity known as Shinatsuhiko or Fuijin. It's believed that this mythical creature was earlier known as Uzuhiko and he's renowned as the god of wind. Basically, Boruto took the Rasengan to a level where it's now named after a Japanese deity, similar to how all the Mangekyo Hack's abilities were named after deities due to their broken nature. This reference from the Japanese mythology could also be taken as a foreshadowing for Boruto tapping into god tier future powers very soon, with the Uzuhiko being his very first broken power of them all. We can also refer to it as the first step to Divinity, assuming the power that Shibai was shown using was actually a Shinjutsu version of this ability. This means the most overpowered technique of Boruto is a watered down version of what Shibai could do, and maybe that's why Daemon wasn't that impressed by his performance in chapter 3. There must be much more in the box for Boruto in terms of learning new hacks abilities, and a straight up hint was given to us in chapter 80 when Daemon foreshadowed a future fight where they both could go all out at full power. I think this exchange of words was intended to set the stage for the prodigy's transcendence into godlike powers that will help him to fight a godlike being. Judging by this, the resemblance between these panels to be a mere coincidence shrinks by a huge margin. There are theoretically many ways for Boruto that he can use to elevate the Uzuhiko technique. First, he could just make shadow clones of himself who would absorb the planetary energy for him, and the real Boruto could use all that absorbed energy to devastate his opponent. By using multiple clones, he could multiply the amount of energy absorption, making this power more broken than before. Not to mention, he could also technically mix a nature style with it after charging it up for as long as he wants, making it a full-fledged elemental wave of spiraling energy. Well, the reason we may never see him doing any of these experiments with Uzuhiko is kinda reasonable. The depletion of his chakra by doing such things could lead to the emergence of Momoshiki, someone that he fears the most right now, as the Otsutsuki could misuse the Uzuhiko power to fulfill his own goals. Now think about the Uzuhiko technique from the hands of Borushiki. Momoshiki could simply take over his vessel and create a beyond planetary level of spiraling energy to finish off any opponent and even the whole planet in the blink of an eye. This is why the return of Momoshiki is so anticipated in the story. He could literally change the whole trajectory of the plot and shift the entire focus on himself by showing us what he could do with the Uzuhiko. So now that we have a clear understanding of how powerful this ability actually is, let's try to understand how it must have originated from the future counterpart of Boruto, who was stalked by Kashin Koji. Basically, the Uzuhiko is a variant of the rasengan, which utilizes the planetary energy to amplify itself. But since the originators of this power, who in this context are the members of the Uzumaki clan, didn't know how to use this technique, it could be that they used to refer to Uzuhiko as a technique which absorbs planetary energy to amplify their other attacks. This is why it's called Rasengan Uzuhiko and not just Uzuhiko. It could potentially be used with any power which can be amplified with planetary energy, be it the basic taijutsu or any sort of ninjutsu. The Uzumaki origins can be concluded from its name, but the true reason behind the connection is more complex than what it seems. We know the Uzumaki clan was one of the most renowned clans in Naruto's history, but they went mysteriously extinct, and with the rumors spreading that they were feared by the other clans who ended up destroying them. But if that's the case, then why aren't there any official records of the Uzumaki massacre? How could they just vanish out of nowhere? The series doesn't give us a clear answer on whether their bodies were recovered or if their disappearance meant they ceased to exist, but assuming they disappeared out of nowhere, it seems like it was the doing of Otsutsuki's, as mentioned by Momoshiki in chapter 79. We know their sealing technique was so powerful that even the Kama would have failed to fulfill its purpose. But what else could they have developed which freaked out this race? Well, you guessed it. It was the Uzuhiko. By absorbing the planet's chakra for as long as they could, they became a threat to the Otsutsuki clan, which may be why some Otsutsuki god decided to wipe them off. So how in the world did this Uzuhiko power reach Boruto? The manga tells us that Kashin Koji foresaw a future where Boruto mastered this power, so he helped the present counterpart to gain an early access of this technique. Now this brings us to how did the future Boruto, who was foreseen by Koji, learn this power at first place? Well, the answer may be really simple. It's time travel. The Boruto from the future could be the same who was shown in the dimension of Kaguya, and he could have went to the time period of the Uzumakis just to obtain their most formidable power, the Uzuhiko. This is how it became easy and efficient for the present Boruto to learn this broken power. But this future Boruto that I'm talking about has apparently lived a pretty rough life than the present one, and I have made not one but 2 videos on this topic, and you can tap on the screen to watch them right now to understand everything a lot better. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you next time.